Food is a fabulous.
It's a beautiful magnet.
Yeah.
And it can mean so many things, can't it? It can
Like
be
what?
Well, it can be food, can be therapy. Mm-hmm. You know, if someone dies and you're mourning, like you can absolutely create an environment where you're cooking something which can still be full of love, and it can be therapy. You can cook for romance, you can cook because you need to be electrified and you need to feel alive, or you might want to cook something that makes you feel sluggish and just curl up and have a cuddle.
Do you know what the best thing of all is? Cooking for people. Because to satisfy, whether it's your family or your friends or something, there's nothing better. It's just a lovely thing to do for people.
A few weeks ago, just hours before the opening of Jamie's Italian in Leicester Square, Jamie Oliver came to see me in the River Cafe to talk about our new podcast book, Table 4 at the River Cafe. We were joined by friends around the table, Gary Lineker, footballer, presenter, and podcaster, and Seth Doane, foreign correspondent for CBS News, who's based in Rome. Together we spoke about restaurants, podcasts, Italian food, cooking for family, writing cookbooks, and navigating the world around us. We began with Jamie and I flicking through the chapters of the book, most of all his chapter, remembering his early days at the River Cafe when we worked together. I was looking at the photographs here, and I looked at all these photographs of people, and there's a lot of affection going on. And then I looked at the one of you and me. And that's there. And I thought, that says a lot, doesn't it? I just literally have you in my arms. And then
I love that picture.
It's a beautiful book. So here is it at the end. If you look at this one, I think it's here. And there, see?
I know,
so
bless.
The two pictures that I thought were so great was one of us in love with each other, hugging. And how old were you in that picture, Jamie?
I came to work for you at 21. 20.
Look at you.
Yeah, baby.
So how many years ago was that?
30 years
30
ago.
years ago. So there you go. And then I was looking at the
Can you believe
content.
that? 30 years.
Yeah, I can, because we're going to be 40.
I know.
So you became 10 years. Well, we're going to talk about that because it's a long time ago. So what we did with this book is to say, we've wrapped it into chapters because with all the people, how do you kind of group it? And we thought food is family. And so we have families, the McCartneys, and we have the Beckhams, and we have food is tradition, food is discovery, and then food is art, so these are the artists, food is politics, and food is food, which are the chefs.
Your guests
and
are amazing, look at this.
If I was going to put you in a chapter, I don't know where I'd put you, because I thought you are family, right? You are tradition, because as you said, we've been together for a while. You definitely are discovery. You definitely are art. I would say you are a work of art. And then political, yes, food is politics, because you are. And then food is food.
Yeah.
So there you go. You could have been in every single chapter, right?
Well, thank you.
And so this was the food chapter that we put you in the end.
Thank you.
And
Well,
so
look,
there's
next to Martha.
Next to Martha. And I was looking at what this chapter, and I was looking what we talked about, thinking what we talked about. And I was thinking what we should really do is what I'd like to do is talk about what you're doing now. What is your, the project you're working on now that's so exciting?
Well, today, I'm opening a restaurant.
Today?
Yeah, literally
today.
Last night was my first soft launch.
So can you imagine that Jamie's actually here?
Yeah, but that's because you're my Ruthie Rogers.
And you can't say no.
Yeah, no, of course I can't.
You can't say no. So
no.
tell us about the restaurant.
Well,
what is it?
As you know, about 20 years ago, I started James Italian, and it was supposed to be a really beautiful mid-market offer into fresh pasta and all the things that we love. It was incredibly successful for 8 years. It was like a dream come true. And then for 2 years, it fell apart, and I lost them all. And it was so I had the best of my life, literally, and then I had the worst. So in a really nice, philosophical, positive way, I feel like a fully rounded restaurateur now because I've had it and I've lost it. Yeah. But really, I also think that in life, the concept of second chances and comebacks and the attitude in a world that can be quite tricky and dark at times in the world we live in or personally, I think dusting yourself down and going again, or I don't know, you would call it being relentless, is important. Yeah. So this is my second chance.
I think it's relentless and resilience.
Yeah.
And empathy. Those, I think if you can teach somebody, I would say resilience is right up there. But with the resilience, you have to have a kind of empathy too.
Totally. So it's quite a big deal, really.
Let's go back to that. What helped you kind of get through that?
Well, I think when I lost them all, you obviously spend quite a long time doing an autopsy in why, what happened, what went wrong. And without trying to massage my own self or ego, we got most of it right. We got the important bits right, and we got the hard bits right. The culture, the feeling, keeping
food. Such good food.
And keeping the staff and taking a pot washer and training them to be senior chefs. But what we got wrong was the business side, really, which is kind of, it was the thing that people always said I was a businessman, but I really wasn't. So this time round, keeping the locations really small, making sure I do all the grown-up stuff properly, and then I did a team briefing yesterday, like 70 people, and they've had all the kind of training and their tasting and the show and the tell and the role play, but then I was trying to get into the feeling.
And what was that?
And you were there, by the way. You were there with me. But the feeling is a hard one to teach. So I was talking about trying to find their words for mojo, like getting your confidence. Like you and Rose were always so good at having these waiters and waitresses that were so individual. And yeah, they had to do it the River Cafe way, but you didn't want robots, you wanted them to be individual. So finding that confidence and having that confidence with a customer to sort of scan them and sort of see what mood they're in, what vibe are they into? Like, are they into, they want to get going quick, or do they want to kind of have an antipasti, a pasta, and share a secondi? So that's the stage that we're in. And of course, they all think I'm mad. But
I bet they don't.
Well, I think they think I'm very enthusiastic. But because they're so young, getting them to tune into like heart and soul and energy and vibe and feeling it sounds a bit hippie, but we both know that it's a very important, it's the secret ingredient, isn't it?
Making people who work for you feel that is actually, I hate to say it's good for business too, because if they're happy, they're going to be kind to the customer. If they feel and it's not huggy, kissy, that warmth. It's also knowing that there's a structure, knowing there's a system, knowing there's a protocol, knowing all that.
But it's all those things that give them the confidence, isn't it?
Gives them confidence, and then they can relax.
I was on the pass once with Rose, and my wife Jules was a waitress.
That's how you met, right?
Yeah, yeah.
You met here?
And didn't meet here, but like we were kind of, that was the time when we kind of got together. And when she's concentrating, she always puts her foot up like a pelican.
Yeah.
And it's like, in a restaurant, really? And she goes, look at your girlfriend. And Rose was there. I mean, Jules was there with her foot as a pelican, and she was struggling to get the cork out of a bottle of Prosecco. So she gave it to the male customer and said, "Can you do it?" And I went, "Oh, I'm so sorry." She goes, "I love it." But of course, somehow.
We're talking about Emily Mortimer, who said she always likes to say that she was the worst waitress in the restaurant that we ever had.
Yeah.
And then she always tells the story that she brought two people, one had lamb, one had fish, and the person who had the fish said, "I'd like some lemon." So she took the lemon off the lamb and said, "You don't need that," and gave it to the fish person. But those are the characters, those are the people that, as long as it's done with that kindness.
Yeah, 100%.
I always say that you can teach somebody to be a really good waiter, to clear the plates, to hold the plates, to pour the wine. But it's harder to teach somebody to have kindness, if they don't have it. And that's what I think we do.
Yeah, 100%. Well, whenever I come here, it feels like coming home, and I'm sure it's the same for all your customers.
Well, you're a big difference in that, I tell you that quite often I'm brought here by a taxi cab driver, and they say to me as we're pulling up, they say, "Do you know that Jamie Oliver worked here?" I go, "Yeah, that's really interesting." And then one of them said, "Do you know this is Jamie Oliver's restaurant?"
Yeah.
And I didn't contradict him, because I thought, yeah, actually it is Jamie Oliver's restaurant. So there's a whole history of that.
Bless you for that.
So tell me more about the new restaurant.
As you know, it's a pretty rough time out there in the hospitality, and it's certainly in mid-market is a mess. So I think you'd be quite...
Why do you think that's true? Why?
I think that post-COVID, post-Brexit, we lost a lot of our amazing front of house staff that were Portuguese and Spanish and Italian, and a proportion of them went home. I think that obviously financially people are a bit struggling at the moment, which is mid-market. But at the same time, when I opened James Italian 20 years ago, that was the last recession. And we were like just giving that having optimism and beautiful feelings and delicious food when it's bad is quite a good time. So unless I'm wrong, last time I did it, it worked. And it's interesting because the industry actually are so supportive. They really want me to sort of get back in mid-market and get that energy going again. But I think you'd be really proud of me. Like that.
I am proud of you. I am proud of you.
Yeah.
Right now.
Yeah, bless.
Proud of you.
Bless.
I won't.
But really nice ingredients, like the pasta's being made like twice a day, every day. It's really simple food. We're doing a carbonara, but it's the classic Roman way. You know.
Did you go to Italy? Have you been to Italy lately?
I mean, I try to go a couple of times a year if I'm lucky, and if I'm really lucky, I might be in the mountains.
Nice.
And you know. I love it. I mean, I started going to Italy with you.
On the wine trips,
yeah, so good. Best trips of my life.
Do you remember? What do you remember? Which one do you remember? So let's just tell who's ever listening that this is when Rose and I started the River Cafe. The very first year, we had the idea that we would take ourselves, because it really was just ourselves, and a few, you know, one other person, whoever was here, Aussie, who was doing the wine, and we would go to the source. We would go to the people who make the olive oil, produce the olive oil. And the wine, and stay with them and eat with them. And that really is a tradition that we've done when we were 5 people working here to right now when we're 130 people working here.
Well, you were the only people doing that. And what's beautiful now is if you look at the family tree of the River Cafe, so many of your chefs that have gone off to do amazing things replicate what you did.
Do their own thing,
and no one did it before you. But I mean, the idea of your boss taking you on what looks like a holiday for like 3-4 days to eat professionally 3 or 4 times a day, which is actually, no one feels sorry for you, but it's quite hard work.
It's hard work, you know.
But I think it's interesting because like you can train somebody, but until they've been there and seen them and been like in that area or up a mountain or seen the nonnas making this or seeing the charcuterie that came from that village, that's what changes them. And it's that change, I think, that gives you your spark and your mojo.
When I think about, you know, your children or my children, how exposed they are. It's about exposures. Exposure to, you know, a museum, you know, it's exposure to music, it's exposure to social values. And, you know, that we, in a way, taking them to people to Italy who may really be good cooks, but they haven't been exposed to what it's like to sit down at an Italian table and eat something that was cooked in a kitchen by, as you say, one of the members of the family, or to be exposed to, you know, I was exposed to suddenly how olive oil is made and when they come back from the trip and they pour olive oil over a piece of lamb or turbot or a piece of bread, they do it in a different way because they've seen the olives come from the tree. They've seen people press the olives. They've seen that. So I think
that was such a gift, though. I mean, it's obviously it was sensible to help the River Cafe amplify what you and Rose were trying to do, but also for every cook that went on those buses around the mountains of Tuscany, like it changed us forever, and we had such fun.
Oh, do you remember?
I mean, I remember so many things, but I remember...
They're a bit wild, I think.
Yeah, I mean, they were...
Now we're much more strict.
Yeah, I'm sure. I mean, we had a lot of fun, but, you know, like, just... Like, I remember you guys were the first people to ever bring Cavolo Nero to Britain. And then I remember Sainsbury's started to stock it. And they're like, what is this? And, you know, that sauce that you make, that you'd have...
We brought back the seeds, and we gave them to a farmer down
I think it was on the
Devon or somewhere, in Somerset. And what were you saying?
I could have sworn it was some Italian growing off the M25 that had all your seeds.
And then we put them in, right, I think down, something near. But you know, and then, as you say, you know, Sainsbury's, if we hadn't brought it, somebody else would have, because that is also something, that connection, that's why Brexit was such a tragedy, I think, because the connection between Europe and us got smaller and smaller. You know, that a truck could leave the Milan market and be here the next day. That, you know, mozzarella.
Well, everything's more complicated now.
Are you finding that?
Yeah, 100%. Everything.
How are you doing with supplying, getting the supplies?
Everything's just harder. Everything's just harder, and everything's just more painful. And whether that's people, or whether that's our kids being able to travel around Europe, like infinitely to learn and be inspired, or whether it's produce, trying to get a shipment of something special in. So yeah, I mean, it's you just got to crack on there, haven't you? I mean, it's sort of survival of the fittest, so you just keep going. But look, it's
we're so lucky. We have the best job in the world. Don't you think? I think we do.
No,
I go into the kitchen and you see what we're cooking, and we walk through the restaurant and see a table that might be having a hard time, and they seem happier, or you see a waiter who broke up with her boyfriend the day before, but somehow is being consoled by the other people. And I just think to be surrounded by people who are really trying
Feeding
to...
people is a privilege, isn't it?
Yeah, how are the kids? How are the kids doing?
My kids are, they're amazing actually. One's 23, she's a teacher. The 22-year-old's a nurse. And then the other 3 are still in school.
Yes.
And they're all different and wonderful and wild, and they keep me on my toes. And Jules is an amazing mum, so I've been very blessed. It's nice seeing the kids having young ladies as my daughters is quite unbelievable. Well, you kind of get, there's a bit of a mic drop moment at 13, isn't it? They're sort of not interested in you for about 5 years. Maybe 6, possibly 7.
Maybe
but they love me again now. So now we're like best friends. And actually, I'm seeing Poppy tonight. She's coming with her friends to the restaurant.
Oh, this is a big opening night. It's so exciting. So this is tonight the opening night?
Yeah, in Leicester Square.
Okay.
And it's an interesting place. The building's beautiful. The size is perfect. The kitchen's open.
And the name of the restaurant
is? It's Jamie's Italian.
Jamie's Italian.
Yeah, I mean, I wanted to have a creative name, but we just kept going back to it's Jamie's, so it's like, all right.
No, it's good.
But in a way, it's not. We just want to over-deliver at simple food, and we're not trying to change your philosophies of food or gastronomy. But I know because I enjoy it that some of those dishes are just undeniable, right?
I'm gonna come.
Yeah, I mean, like we got a soft serve machine, which is like from my childhood. But normally they put like powdered milk stuff in there, so we make proper anglaise with like lovely eggs and cream and milk and vanilla.
Do you use less eggs when you have soft serve?
Yeah, much less. Yeah. And it comes out so silky. And then last night I just had one with a little espresso over the top, and it's just like simple. It just works, man.
Yeah, that's good.
And they were serving tiramisu at the table from a big dish, so it kind of feels right.
It's going to be beautiful. It's going to be great. We're all going to be there.
Yeah.
Tell me about the book.
Barbecue. I love cooking over fire. I adore it, actually. And I think British people, if I'm being fair and generalising, are terrible at barbecuing.
Oh, okay.
And I think that's just the truth.
Do you think it's the weather?
No, I think it's a really interesting thing. We consider, I'm generalising, but largely we think barbecuing is direct grilling. So without the lid. I think a lot of people buy barbecues and go, what's the lid for? You know, and when you look at because I'm a bit weird, when you look at the statistics around fire brigade call-outs and why houses burnt down from barbecues in summer in Britain, the amount that are started with aerosol, alcohol or perfume. Like, sister, what's going on?
Hey, well, there's Gary Lineker. Should we get him over here?
Yeah,
Come
cool.
on. I bet you come on. Bring your chair. I bet you barbecue. Do you barbecue? Is there a chair for Gary? Yeah. Do you barbecue? That's silence. I mean, there's my two favorite people talking about barbecue.
I try everything.
I think it's a very male thing.
I love cooking.
Yeah.
You know, he's a really good cook.
Yeah, I've heard. He's got a reputation on the grapevine.
I don't report on football or, kick balls into net. And he comes and cooks.
Kick balls into net? You went all kind of northern there.
Is that what you call it?
Kick balls into net.
Is that what you call it? What's northern about that?
It's because you went into net.
I didn't use the plural. Into net. Net.
That's how they say it in the north, in
really?
Yorkshire and Leeds and all that.
Okay, there you go.
I like that, though.
Okay, I'll keep
good.
going.
But you know,
I just think it's
I'm a big fan of James, by the way. I lives in a lot of York. When I started cooking, right, I'd never cooked in my life until 10 years ago.
Oh, really?
And I'm ancient now, obviously. But I never cooked in my life, and I got single again, and I was at home, and I was ordering takeaways, and I was going to restaurants even on my own, and I thought, come on, Gary, learn to cook, get a grip. It's now the biggest passion of mine.
Amazing.
I just love it. And particularly in the early days, your cook, and genuinely mean this, I'm not just saying it, but I got your cookbooks, and they were so easy to follow, and you were an inspiration. So thank you. Thank you. And I still cook lots of your recipes today, particularly the roast, which is my boy's favourite. Sunday lunch, pork belly.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, I'm touched. I'm so touched. But also, you really have got a reputation of being a good cook. I think cooking is an interesting one. And actually, to sort of take it back to you, Ruthie and Rose, like, not in a political way, but I think because a lot of cooking and chefing is masculine and alpha, what I learned from Rose and Ruthie was like you have to got to tune into the feminine. Hi, Seth.
Hi.
The
Seth.
into the
So we've just been joined by Seth.
With a bit of luck, we'll be
Would you
joined
I'm
by...
Seth Doane
would you
from
introduce-
CBS. Yep.
Yeah.
Seth Doane from CBS Sunday
to
Morning.
see you,
We're
Seth.
doing a story
Yeah.
on Ruthie and the River Cafe and the new book.
Let's go back to men cooking, because I do think you taught all women, you've taught everybody, but with your first book, I really think that, and I'm not the first person to say that Jamie made cooking, gender-free, and also encourages boys to cook and made it kind of sexy and fun, and that you could, that I think that was a really radical thing.
Well, I think I was lucky. I was lucky to have come through you guys at the River Cafe, and there's a lot of luck, but I think in Britain at that, if you follow back what made me famous so quickly, it was largely female journalists. And there was a moment in time where men and women were going to work, they were putting in a 10, 12-hour shift, getting home tired, and men around Britain would go, "What's for dinner, love?"
Yeah.
All of them.
Yeah.
And the young women of Britain, and I'm going back 30 years, like this is at the beginning of The Naked Chef, were like, well, yeah. And obviously, and a lot of the journalists were saying, if this young kid on TV can do it, well, why can't everyone do it? So really, the naked chef's job was to get men in the kitchen, and it pretty much worked. Actually,
It sure did.
It took me a long time.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
you were a little, 20 years later.
But you were a little busy, weren't you, at the
regret in
time?
my life, it's that I didn't cook when I was young.
Yeah.
And now I've got 4 boys. They're not boys anymore. They're men. They're 3 of them in their 30s now, and one's 28. But they all cook now.
Yeah.
And also, it keeps them coming back.
Yeah.
I lit them, I cook them. They come every Sunday. They come
Yeah, congregating.
and food is a fabulous.
It's a beautiful magnet.
Yeah.
And it can mean so many things, can't it? It can
Like
be
what?
Well, it can be food can be therapy. If someone dies and you're mourning, like you can absolutely create an environment where you're cooking something which can still be full of love, and it can be therapy. You can cook for romance. You can cook because you need to be electrified and you need to feel alive and you feel a little bit sluggish, or you might want to cook something that makes you feel sluggish and just curl up and have a
Do you
cuddle.
know what the best thing of all is? It's joyous for cooking for people. Because to satisfy, whether it's your family or your friends or something, there's nothing better. It's just a lovely thing to do
Yeah.
for people.
I think
I'm
some
just
of
so
my
angry at
happiest.
myself for being late.
Well, some of my happiest moments are in my kitchen with some good tunes on, maybe a little glass of something,
Definitely.
and I'm just in bliss doing something.
Same.
How
And
often does that still happen?
every weekend.
Where you can just
Yeah.
totally detach from
I-
the restaurant empire?
I've tried to be religious about weekends, since I thought I could carry on working too much. But when my kids got to 3, I realised you've got to be, you've got to sort yourself out. So I've been very religious about, I only work at weekends if there's trouble. And there's not too much trouble. So I'm very lucky.
I also kind of respect people who don't cook. You have to sort of make time for the woman who says, I'd rather do homework with my kid, order out than sit, I'd rather do something with them other than cook. Or, people who just say, it's not my thing. The pressure sometimes to be the family around the table and somehow you're a failure if you don't do it.
I think
we attain that, we want that, but I also feel that the
spent
pressure
50
is a
odd
bit
years
hard.
if you were never
Doing
taught.
Not doing it.
Yeah, because you can see it in people's fear. If you were in the UK, we're like 4 generations into kids not learning to cook from their parents or school. So then, and anything online or on
I have to
shows,
say, I agree with you.
we can't replace what a nonna, a mama, or an auntie, or someone in the street. And I think the fear they have is like it's a terrible science exam.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, it's not supposed to, it's just a sandwich. It's like, I think that's why, I think
I agree with
we're
you.
both so passionate about like primary schools and getting kids involved in seeing growing and cooking and having that kind of, that handheld dexterity, just using a peeler or a knife.
Also, in the time it takes to put a bag of pasta in boiling water, and then put some cheese and butter on it or a little bit of tomato on it, it's faster than getting a ready-made meal that you can actually make it yourself and have fun. Being able to teach someone something. I do think it's a responsibility of the government to make food available.
You've done amazing work, by the way.
And he
Amazing.
has. Jamie,
Yeah,
we should
he
really
has.
talk about what you've done for education for kids, for hunger, for
Yeah, it goes
food
on.
store.
I mean, we actually just started in the
battle, isn't it?
United States.
Shouldn't
actually.
be, but
We've
it's a
just,
battle.
yeah, I mean, I think it's a shame that all the science and all the data and everything proves that teaching children about food, where it comes from, how it affects their body, they get better results, better educational attainment, better health outcomes. Currently, when kids go to elementary school, they're getting more unhealthy in that time, not healthier. So the amount of obese, like 11-year-olds, has just gone up. So it's such a shame. It's such a waste. So obviously, one of the best ways to teach geography or history or science or biology is through food and through seeing stuff grow. So it feels still like it's an add-on and it's cute and it's a luxury. And I just think, I don't know when they're going to get it. When they realise it's a necessity, not a luxury. And
It's also an investment.
They'll get it when they think it's a vote winner.
Yeah. Or
That's when they'll
yeah.
get it.
It's also.
And it should
I think
be.
it's
Yeah.
it should be. But I also know that in the Head Start program in America, which gave kids breakfast at school, that what the children who were fed in those years did not need benefits later on. That so that investment in early education pays. If you want to just look at it from finance view, it's an investment that really pays off.
trying to make like proper change is tough, and like we just got free school lunches for primary school kids across the country, just because there's quite a large proportion of free school lunch kids, poverty, etc. And so we have to make documentaries, tell stories. Luckily there's good people like Mark Carney that used to run the Bank of England. He helped me put a team together to prove that giving free school lunches not only was money well spent, but it would actually make the country money over a 10-year period. So, it's having a feeling about something's one thing, but in this day and age of government, you have to prove it.
What about this man and what he's done for podcasts, for people listening? You've given us so much, Gary. Really, it's just.
I can only apologise.
Why? No, you've given a whole life to listening to people talk, to educating, But you don't have one on food. I think we should do.
Well, we don't. No, we don't.
Why not?
We don't. But
do that.
we've looked at food for a long time.
So we should tell the American audience what you do. Or tell the audience. Tell them about.
Well, we've got a kind of podcast business that thankfully has done quite well.
Kind of.
We've got the biggest podcast in the world, and the rest is history. We've got a group of podcasts. The rest is, including football and entertainment and politics, which is also enormous, and politics US, which is, let's say, interesting at the moment. With Anthony Scaramucci is one of our hosts. So we need a food one. Are you busy?
Well, I'm actually free. Free and available.
I'll do it with you.
Yeah, I think it's interesting the podcast in a day of so much technology. Like, there's something about listening that goes in differently, and a bit like reading affects people differently. Which sadly, as a dyslexic, I never could take part in that. But podcasts.
Talk about that for a minute. Where you did as a dyslexic. What?
Well, when I was a kid, like, I didn't do very well at school, and words were my enemy. And so actually, I used to watch you and Rose laying your books out.
Yeah.
And because design was such a big part of what you were doing, design's very helpful to dyslexics, because that whole idea of illustrations or step-by-steps or kind of simplifying things, for a dyslexic, that's like, do you know what I mean? It just makes it all easier. So I think it's something that you have to deal with as a kid. If it's not acknowledged young, it can kind of stain in a bad way lots of people. I did a documentary on it last year, I was quite shocked how many well-achieved, robust people would come to me and sob, and I did an interview, which is where it all came from. I did an interview about a book a kid's book that I'd written, and they asked me a question, and I started crying. It's not what we want to do, really, and it certainly wasn't in the plan. And then so you go, well, why? That's a bit odd. I'm not really like that. And I think it's just basically 7-year-old Jamie concept of being thick, stupid, dumb, and like not fitting into the normal protocol of school. So now it's kind of like I'm getting my head around it, and even to the new restaurant, I wrote the menu, which I never would have done. And I just thought, well, just grow up, get around it. And I employed someone, a lady, to come in and teach me how to write for 2 hours, and then I spent 7 hours doing it, and now it's on the menu. Funny enough, I've written like 30 books, but I've never written one. I did
not
the
the
first
actual
three
words,
I did it on dictaphone.
That in your book, where you talk about dictating, or you mentioned it in your
Dictaphone,
book,
yeah.
dictating that first cookbook. I wondered how do you do that? How can you keep
Well, it's
keep
quite
track of
beautiful, really, because everyone goes, "Oh, your style of writing is very chatty," and I go, "Well, that's because it was chatty."
Someone's going.
And you go to a kid, I use a dictaphone, and they're like, "What?" And I'm like, like a little cassette, and every cassette was a chapter, and they're like, and I'm like, an app. It's like, but no, I think as soon as I earned a bit of money, I employed an editor who just types what I say.
But you really have to have very clear thoughts to be able to dictate.
The thoughts were always there. It was getting it down.
Yeah.
And then if you couldn't get it down right, you get frustrated. And then if you get frustrated, then you become one of those. And that was me.
It's also what Gary's given us is that we can listen.
Yeah.
That all of us can listen to people telling us
just
stories.
working out, apart from brilliant podcasts like your own, Ruthie, which is like interviews and people, it's quite hard. There's not one big podcast out there in terms of food and in terms of recipes and teaching people, helping people to cook, because it's so visual. But what's happened in the podcast world now is it's gone basically from TV show into audio show, and now, as we can see here, it's twisting back towards television. So everything is filmed now. Everything goes on, whether it's on, you can view things on Spotify or YouTube or whatever it is. But there's definitely
really challenging.
but now's the moment for food, a really big food one.
Do you think some of that will change the intimacy of podcasts? If you have to worry because one of the great things somebody always thinks about television is to go and just talk with someone or put a microphone down and hear from someone.
But you've still got the choice. You've still got the choice. At the moment, I think it's that intimacy with if it's two hosts or Ruthie and a guest or whatever it is, you feel like you're in the room. When it's just audio, and everything is now filmed as well, but you don't have to watch it. And there's still we get a lot of data in our business, but there's about still 62% of people prefer it and do just listen to podcasts in terms of just audio. But it is changing. A year ago it would have been 70-30. Now it's 60-40.
But you don't fear that something will be lost in the production of podcasts as you have to think so much about cameras and lights and TV?
It will be more costly and probably more difficult for people to just do a podcast like that. But we're kind of, in terms of ourselves, we're so far down. We've been recording and filming our podcast for years anyway, on the off chance. But yeah, the production levels will, I think, grow as we go, and that will be an opening for things like food. Because I think it's so
Food's
visual.
interesting.
It's like when you get
food and radio is amazing, like sizzling and chopping.
when you get a recipe book and you've had lots of them. I always go when particularly in the early days and reading your books and whoever else I used to want. You would do the recipe where there's an image next to it, a picture of what the result is, and the pages in some books where there's no image, you flip. And you flip because food is.
That's why I always
so
had a picture
visual.
every
Always,
time.
always.
But also in my I always have it on the right hand side as well.
Yeah.
So when you're flicking, you could always see them.
That's it.
It's like
We
these-
did that kids book, and when we did the children's book, there was no printed word for 100 pages. It's all photographs. So the kids could look at it and go, "Oh, I like that. Where's that recipe?" Rather than sometimes seeing a recipe, which is a bit overwhelming and daunting.
Absolutely.
So you say, "Well, let's just look at these," and then at the end with the recipes. But I think for us, I just loved listening. The idea of somebody who'd never done anything before was the fact that you could put a microphone and start talking. And,
My wife walks around the house with podcasts going off. Like everything she does around the house, she's listening. I think they feel it's very intimate.
It is intimate.
But now that people's attention span is like, if you don't get them on YouTube in the first 30 seconds, then they're onto something else.
I think podcast disproves that theory to a large degree. I mean, we get a lot of data, as I said before. Even for the rest is politics and the rest is history. They're a huge podcast. the average age is around 31, 32, which is
that's
very,
nice.
very young.
That's young.
Very, very young.
Yeah.
And it's a long form.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
not short. So I think that
Yeah.
disproves that
Yeah.
to a degree.
Good.
There's a lot of old wives'
yeah.
tales, isn't there?
Really
They
is.
scare you and say nobody has
I'm always
attention
a
anymore.
believer that if it's quality,
Yeah.
and if you've got a bit of frequency, then you can build up
Yeah.
a relationship.
Yeah.
And funny enough, I've watched podcasts for years as a presenter, and I've never done it, and just been watching
really
and watching,
good,
and I just did 6 as just a limited run,
Okay.
but very like science and health based, world experts on different things like the gut and sleep, and I did it at home, and just things like talking about stuff and how it
Yeah.
affects you, but also with the noise of nature. And do you know what I mean? It's like quite hippie, but when you listen to it, you feel like you're
different.
literally there. And I'm pulling stuff out the garden and talking, you know. So I think that was my first dabble. I think I'll do it again.
I think the three of us should do another one. Let's go. I think we found a good thing. Let's go and have some lunch.
Thank
then.
you.
You have to get back.
This talk of food's making me feel very
You're hungry. Let's go have something to eat. Okay, thank you. It's
Thank
great.
you. Thanks
Let's
for having
go.
us.
So good.
Ruthie's Table 4 was produced by Alex Bell, Robbie Hamilton, and Zad Rogers, with Andrew Sang and Bella Salini. This has been an Atomised production for iHeart Media.